So basically, if one tries to list out what are the experimental effects which one anticipates or which one is likely to observe um, in a scattering experiment, one very important effect which we didn't talk about last time is that the target mass will react when the scattering process takes place, because the there is a change in the direction of the momentum of the incoming projectile particle. So obviously the target particle is giving some momentum. Naturally, for conservation of total conservation of linear momentum, the target particle also has to move in the opposite direction. Only then linear momentum conservation will be valid, which has to be valid. It's a sacred conservation law. As we have discussed earlier, conservation of linear momentum is related to the homogeneity of space. Space as a, I don't know to call it medium, but yeah, as a medium, it is uniform. Basically, laws of physics here and laws of physics a little bit there are the same. A consequence of this is the global conservation of linear momentum. And hence, if the projectile particle in this diagram is going up, the target particle should go slightly down. Only then linear momentum is conserved. Our explanation for this point last time has been that basically the target is very, very heavy. For example, Rutherford alpha scattering, the alpha particle is a lighter particle. The gold nucleus is much heavier, and hence it is the assumption that the gold nucleus doesn't shift much is fairly okay. But when you go to other systems of collisions, if the masses of the two are comparable, then the target recoil, the back kick which your target mass gets, has to be taken into account. That is the first point. Second point is something which we will come to in detail and we'll have a look at it. But basically, the angle at which you observe the scattering in the laboratory and the angle which you have calculated from the orbit equation, they happen to be slightly different. In what manner they are different, we'll come to that. But there is a difference between the experimentally observed scattering angle and the theoretically calculated scattering. They are two different quantities and you have to find the relation between them. The third point, as we mentioned, is that there could be energy loss during the collision. So before collision, the momentum was something. Afterwards, it is a little less. So we need to take this into account as well. And these are the things which will be occupying us for today. Let us look at the scattering process in a little more detail. Okay? We will try to see it in two different ways. One is by sitting in the laboratory. By laboratory, what we mean is that the target is at rest and the projectile is moving. That is what you mean by laboratory frame of reference as far as scattering experiments are concerned. The idea is that just like Rutherford had, you have a cold file which is stationary. So the target is a stationary object and you have an alpha particle which is moving. On the other hand, when you talk about center of mass frame, basically you are trying to say that I am going to sit on the center of mass, and therefore from the center of mass position, what I will observe is that the projectile will be approaching me from one side and target will be approaching me from the other side. Let us try to compare these two pictures here. So we know that when the projectile is fired towards the target, the projectile will get scattered. What we have not taken into account last time, which we realize and are doing now, is that the target will also get scattered. Okay? Our target will also get at least displaced by a small amount. Heavier the target, smaller is the recoil, but the recoil will be there. The assumption in all this discussion is that the projectile is a very light particle, the target is a very heavy particle, but they have comparable masses. Okay? And in that case, the target will move a little bit as it is shown in this diagram. And what we call the scattering angle is basically the angle between the initial direction of projectile and final direction of the projectile. And we don't bother about what is happening to the target. This is not a, this is from an experimental viewpoint. You don't know what is happening at the target. Basically, you shot a beam, you observed the scattered particles. That is all that is in your hand. Inside the target, how did the target particle move? We cannot have an idea about it at the microscopic level. So what we observe in the laboratory is just a scattering angle theta lab. Now, if I try to look at it in a different way, I say that let me go and sit on the center of mass of the two particles. Then the picture I observe is something like this. There is a projectile, there is a target. They move towards each other along the line joining the two. Basically, the point at the center here is basically the center of mass. Okay. The point which is at the, the point which is at the center over here is the center of mass. So the center of mass, both of them appear to move towards the center of mass, and then both of them appear to move away from the center of mass. Center of mass is a fixed point. That is a point of calling this as the center of mass frame of reference. So basically, if you are in the middle of a road junction and two cars are approaching from the two sides and they both see each other and they turn to avoid each other, you remain at the center. What you see is car is approaching me from both the sides, and after some time one car is moving away at a different direction, other car is moving away at a different direction. Imagine that you are the guy who is standing at this center. Okay. So as far as the center of mass is concerned, this is how the scattering process looks like. And in this case, what you define as scattering angle is basically the angle between the initial and final direction of the projectile. The definition of scattering angle is not changed. However, what is changed is the angle itself. You can see that the angle in the center of mass frame is different from the angle as observed in the laboratory frame. And let us try to look at this in slightly better detail. Let us try to correlate the center of mass picture or incorporate that in the picture which is on the left right now. Okay. So basically, let us look at the picture on the left. You have a target particle, you have a projectile particle, okay, and you have after collision the target is here and the projectile is here. Okay. Let us try to join the two with a straight line. Okay. Then the center of mass will be somewhere here as shown by this dot. Okay. That dot represents the center of mass. Center of mass is basically continuously moving in the forward direction. There is nothing special about it. Okay. So this is the center of mass. And if you will notice, basically the line joining the target and the projectile, it makes some angle with the initial projectile direction. So if I am sitting on the center of mass, then the angle which I will observe by which the projectile is moving is this angle. Okay. So this angle is called the center of mass frame scattering angle, and the angle which is shown in blue is called the laboratory frame scattering angle. Okay. So the center of mass frame scattering angle is different from the laboratory laboratory frame scattering angle. And why do you call this as theta center of mass? Because basically it is the angle between line joining the projectile direction with the center of mass and the final projectile direction with the center of mass. So initial projectile direction towards the center of mass is this. Final projectile direction away from center of mass is this. So angle between these two is called the theta center of mass, which is the same definition as we have used in the center of mass frame. Okay. So if we join the line from the projectile to the original position of target, the angle which we measure is called the laboratory frame angle. And if we join the line from the projectile to the current position of the target, then we get the what is called the center of mass frame scattering angle. Okay. Now, why we have spent so much time on this? Because when we did our theoretical development of scattering as a central force problem, what we have done essentially is we have neglected the center of mass motion completely. And we said that center of mass, that is the whole aim of that exercise, that when you reduce it to the one body problem, you are neglecting the motion of the center of mass. So you are talking about motion in the center of mass frame, essentially. And therefore, basically the angle which you were talking about in the formalism using the central force orbit equation is this angle. which we are now calling scattering angle in the center of mass frame. Okay. When you do the experiment actually in lab, you will shoot this projectile at the target. The projectile will get scattered at a certain angle, and you have no way of knowing what is happening to the target itself. Okay, you have to just infer based on how the projectile is moving. Okay, so this is the measured angle, this is the calculated angle, and they are different. So we have to find out some way of correlating what we have managed to calculate last time using orbit equation with what will actually be observed in the lab. Only when we make this connection, then our program of scattering is completed. Okay. Last time we said that we have completed our program of scattering, but that was basically only the theoretical half. We did not correlate that with what will actually be observed in experiments. We have always maintained that we can always work back using the center of mass coordinates. We can always work back, but it is useful to have a expression not only for the coordinates themselves, but also for the cross sections. And that is why we are doing this whole exercise. Okay. So whatever theoretical cross section we calculate, how to correlate that with what will actually be observed in the laboratory. That is the aim of this particular today's discussion. The definition of scattering angle was always the same. There is an initial direction of projectile, there is a final direction of projectile. Angle between them is theta center of mass. Keep your eye only on the projectile. Forget that there is some other things involved. ठीक है, इसका इनिशियल डायरेक्शन क्या है, इधर है, इसका फाइनल डायरेक्शन क्या है, इधर है, तो दोनों के बीच का एंगल क्या है, it is what we call as theta scattering, correct? And in this case, since we are working in the center of mass frame of reference, we call this as theta center of mass. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right. Now coming to how is that mapped over here in the left diagram. Basically, line joining center of mass to target and projectile. Okay. This particular line will always be the same irrespective of which frame you are moving, at least within non-relativistic regime. Okay. There is no such thing as length contraction and something like that. So whether the center of mass be moving or stationary, the relative position of the projectile and target from the center of mass will be the same, irrespective of whether your center of mass is moving or stationary. Okay. So this is just a simple transformation from, this is the frame where the center of mass is stationary. This is the frame of reference where the target is initially stationary. Okay. Is that okay? So basically, the line joining the target, projectile and center of mass, this line will always make the same angle from the horizontal axis, irrespective of which frame you consider it. And therefore, this angle we call it as theta center of mass. Theta laboratory is our usual definition. Projectile initial direction and projectile final direction ke beech ka angle. All right. Any doubt still? Then please ask. Please make your doubt more specific or more pointed. If not, then we will move further. Let us try to kind of obtain a relation between the laboratory angle and the center of mass frame angle. These two angles which we mentioned. Basically, we will start with the coordinates of the center of mass. This is a bit of a, it is not heuristic per se. I mean, it's a very systematic approach, but there is a lot of, rote-based vector algebra involved. So just have a close look at things. This is our standard definition of center of mass. The coordinate of the center of mass in any general frame of reference is given by mass of target upon total mass times position of target plus mass of projectile upon total mass divided by position of projectile. This is a standard definition of center of mass which we used initially when we started our discussion of central force. The only thing is you had M1 R1 and M2 R2. Here we have labeled them specifically as target and projectile. That's all. And similarly, the relative position we can define as the projectile direction, position vector minus the target position vector. This is basically what you had, R bar equal to R2 bar minus R1 bar. It's the same thing, only instead of particle number 2, I am calling it projectile. Instead of particle number 1, I am calling it the target particle. That's the only difference. You can differentiate these two expressions. The masses are constant and hence directly you will get capital V, which is the velocity of the center of mass, is equal to the same mass ratios multiplied by the respective velocity. This is just a time derivative of the first equation. Similarly, the relative velocity between the two particles will be the difference between the velocity of projectile minus velocity of target, vector difference. Okay. This is pretty standard. Okay. You can also get the reverse of these expressions. That is, you can simultaneously solve the expressions for capital R bar and small r bar to get RT bar and RP bar. And you will find that the projectile position vector in terms of the center of mass and relative coordinates is like this. And the target position vector is like this. And their derivatives will naturally be straightforward because each term can be differentiated separately. Masses are constant. Okay. This is just a recap of something which we already knew. If you need a explicit mention, this is the center of mass coordinate and this is the relative coordinate. This is the center of mass velocity and the relative velocity. The physical picture which you are trying to correlate over here is the following, that I have a one particle here. I am going to call it the particle T. I have another particle called P. I have an origin of coordinates called O. From the origin, I can define a position vector for the T particle. I can define a position vector for the P particle. I can also define a distance R over here, which I can vectorially represent as R bar pointing from T towards P. And there will be a center of mass and its coordinate we are calling capital R bar. This is the center of mass. Okay. So this is the picture, only instead of R1, R2, I am going to call them as RT and RP. That's the only difference. Otherwise, it's the same picture we had at the initial discussion of the relation between center of mass coordinates and relative coordinates. Okay. And these are just by simultaneously solving these equations, you will get these equations. And similarly, by either differentiating these or simultaneously solving this, you will get the velocities as well. We'll need some of these expressions later. That is the purpose of writing everything here. This is like a kind of bank where you have invested all these equations. You can draw any of these equations at any stage. Yes, Akshay, you have a question?
Sir, center of mass आपण दोन बॉडी चा घेतलाय ना, म्हणजे टार्गेट आणि पार्टिकलचा. मग तो कुठेतरी एका स्पेस पॉइंट मध्ये येणार ना, म्हणजे
हो.
मग त्या पॉइंटची व्हेलॉसिटी आपण बघतोय का इथे व्ही, कॅपिटल व्ही.
हो,
ठीक आहे.
हो, त्या पॉइंटची व्हेलॉसिटी म्हणजे अख्खाचं अख्खं सिस्टम, प्रोजेक्टाईल प्लस टार्गेटचं सिस्टम खूप लांबून पाहिलं तर आपल्याला एक पॉइंट विथ टोटल मास, मास टार्गेट प्लस मास, टोटल मासचा एकच सिस्टम आपल्याला दिसेल. म्हणजे उदाहरणार्थ जर समजा मी अँड्रोमेडा गॅलेक्सी मध्ये एका ग्रहावरती बसलोय आणि मी मग सनला पाहतोय, तर मग सन आणि प्लॅनेट्सचा वेगळा मला वेलॉसिटी नाही मिळणार. टोटल सोलर सिस्टमचा अख्ख्याचा एक सिंगल मास कॉन्सन्ट्रेटेड समवेअर अँड दॅट इज मुव्हिंग इतकंच दिसणार.
ओके सर, समजलं. थँक्यू.
येस. ऑल राईट. So this is just a collection of expressions. Okay. Let us move further quickly and let us actually try to obtain the relation between these two angles. How we are going to do this is the following. First, consider this picture. Basically, we have a projectile. We are going to represent the letter U as initial velocity, and the letter V will represent final velocity. Okay? What you mean is before and after the collision. So you have got a projectile with an initial velocity U, UP bar, in this direction, and after interacting with the target, it goes with a final velocity VP bar in this direction. And therefore, the scattering angle is basically the difference between the initial direction of UP bar and the final direction, which is the direction of VP bar. This angle is the scattering angle. I am calling it laboratory scattering angle because we are in the laboratory frame. The target is initially stationary. After the projectile interacts and goes, the target gets a recoil and it also moves. So right now I am not looking at how the target is moving. My main focus is on the projectile because I am interested in this angle. That angle is the angle between UP bar and VP bar. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
Right. This is the angle between UP bar and VP bar. We can take the dot product of these two vectors. It will be UP bar dot VP bar is just magnitude of UP bar multiplied by magnitude of VP bar multiplied by cosine of the angle between them. Angle between them is theta lab, and hence we get this. Okay. UP bar cross VP bar can also be done. Basically, modulus of that is going to be magnitude of UP multiplied by magnitude of VP multiplied by sine of theta lab. These are standard definitions. There is nothing special about it. I can look at the same process in the center of mass frame. Let me put up two more equations. Sorry for the interruption. See, impossible. Okay. I hope you had a good long look at these equations, and hopefully it is all straightforward. The initial velocity, relative velocity between the projectile and target will be in the same direction as the projectile velocity. Okay. We are still looking at this from the laboratory frame only. So initially the relative velocity between them changes along the along this direction, and so the initial relative velocity is in this direction, and the final relative velocity is along the line joining the target and the projectile. Okay. Relative velocity means it is along the direction joining the projectile and target, basically. Okay. So the initial relative velocity is in this direction, final relative velocity is along the direction joining the projectile and target, and the angle between these two is what we have defined in the left diagram in the previous panel as the center of mass angle. We correlated that to the actual angle which will be measured in the center of mass frame. If you remember, the center of mass is somewhere here or maybe here somewhere, and so basically this is the same picture. You can see that the positions of the projectile particle, initial, final positions, the entire diagram is the same, only the arrows have been changed. Okay. So basically you can take initial, the relative velocity is in the same direction as the projectile velocity because the target is not moving. Therefore, the initial velocity of the projectile and the initial relative velocity are in the same direction. Okay, and since they are in the same direction, one can also say that the angle between initial projectile velocity and final relative velocity is also theta center of mass, because up and u relative are in the same direction, and therefore you get up dot v relative is magnitude of up into magnitude of v relative multiplied by cosine of the theta center of mass, and magnitude of up bar cross v relative bar is magnitude of up bar into magnitude of v relative bar into sine of theta center of mass. Okay. So basically you have got 4 expressions which contain cos theta lab, sine theta lab, cos theta center of mass, and sine theta center of mass. Using this, we will try to mix and match to finally obtain something useful. Okay. Is this part okay? All right. Let us go further. We have kept the picture for reference. Basically, you have got up bar dot vp bar, which we did, is up into vp into cosine of theta lab. But we also know the definition of vp bar, which we had written over earlier. So you can substitute for vp bar, you will get velocity of center of mass plus mt by m times relative velocity. And if you carry through this dot product, basically you get up times velocity of center of mass plus mt by m times. We have already written down up dot v relative also in the previous page. So basically you can substitute that here. So finally you get up vp cos theta lab is equal to this long expression. All of this is very straightforward algebra. It is just normal substitution and elimination what we do for simultaneous equation. There is nothing really very confusing about it. One just has to be careful because there are so many terms around. You have got projectile velocity, you have got target velocity, you have got relative velocity, and you have got velocity of center of mass. You have got initial values of all these guys, you have got final values of all these guys. So because there are all these quantities floating around, one has to be a little careful while writing. But otherwise, the algebra here is very straightforward. Okay. Similarly, when you take magnitude of up bar cross vp bar, one expression is up vp sine theta, which we already wrote down. For the other expression, you can substitute vp bar in terms of v relative, and that will give you the following expression. Let us try to understand this carefully. The magnitude of up bar cross v bar plus this will be magnitude of up bar cross v bar plus up bar cross mt by m times v relative. Now, what is capital V bar? It is the direction of the center of mass motion. Now, initially target is at rest, projectile is moving in this direction. Therefore, if you ask the question, in what direction is the center of mass moving? Center of mass is also moving in this direction, because center of mass is the some point between the projectile and the target. So that guy is basically moving in the horizontal direction. There is no other possibility. Okay. And what is the final direction of center of mass velocity? Again the same, because total momentum conservation of projectile plus target system means that the final velocity of center of mass should also be in the same direction. Velocity of the center of mass is conserved. This is one of our primary assumptions in the original central force problem also. The center of mass acts as a free particle. Its velocity is conserved. And hence, up bar, the initial velocity of the projectile, and v bar, the velocity of the center of mass, they are always in the same direction, and hence their cross product will be 0. That is what you have written here. And the other term is mt by m times up bar cross v relative bar. We already had an expression for that, which we have written over here. Okay. So this is just straightforward substitution. There is nothing complicated about this. Okay. And when you have these two expressions, if you divide the left hand side, you will get up vp sine theta upon up vp cos theta. Of course, up into vp will straightforwardly cancel. You will get sine theta upon cos theta, which is tan theta. That is what happens on the left. On the right, you get a slightly more horrible expression. where you can see that there is a common factor somewhere, mt by m times up into v relative is common here, but there is an additional term here in the denominator. Okay. So we can try to simplify this. Start with this expression which we had at the last of the previous page. The left hand side will simply become tan theta. Right hand side you can divide throughout by this factor. If you divide throughout by this factor, then basically you get only sin theta and only cos theta here, and the third term up into v center of mass divided by mt by m up times v relative becomes this particular expression. It gives you m v center of mass, capital M times v center of mass divided by target velocity, target mass times relative velocity. Okay. What does this physically appear to represent? The numerator is momentum of center of mass. I am talking about this bracketed quantity here now. Numerator of this is the momentum of center of mass, and the denominator is kind of target recoil momentum, if you can notice. Okay, because it is mass of target multiplied by the relative velocity between the projectile and the target. So it is center of mass initial momentum or center of mass total momentum divided by recoil momentum of the target. That is a kind of interpretation of this particular term. We don't know what it fully means yet, but right now rough interpretation is that, and hence it has something to do with the target recoil. This is my personal terminology for this term. Goldstein doesn't give any specific name, he just calls it rho. But according to me, one can call it something like recoil parameter. Okay. We'll be looking at this in more detail later on, but I'm going to call it as a kind of recoil parameter. Okay. So basically, what have you got? You have got tan theta laboratory is equal to sin theta center of mass divided by cos theta center of mass plus some factor rho. That is what you have. So you have basically got a relation between the laboratory frame angle and center of mass frame angle. If you know the center of mass frame angle, then you can immediately calculate the laboratory frame angle, provided you know what is rho. And we'll later on come to an idea about how to obtain rho. But basically, once you obtain rho, what you have got is a relation between the laboratory angle and the center of mass angle, which is what we initially set out to find. Now we'll try to recast this in a slightly more convenient way. Why is that convenient will come a little down the line, but it is more useful to have a relation between cos theta center of mass and cos theta laboratory rather than tan theta and sin theta cos theta. So we will try to do that and try to see how that helps us. Okay. There are multiple ways to do this. This is just one of the ways in which, see, algebra, once it is there, rearrangement can be done multiple ways, and each aspect has its own advantages, disadvantages. This is one particular way which made sense to me, so I have taken it that way. You can do your own algebra, I don't mind. Trigonometric ratios have so many relations with each other that you can easily use some other relation to obtain the same result. Okay. Let us try to look at this in more detail. An alternate relation between the laboratory and center of mass angles. Basically, you are looking at tan theta laboratory is equal to sin theta center of mass upon cos theta center of mass plus rho. Rho is an additional parameter. If you square the expression on both the sides and then add 1, you get 1 plus tan square theta is equal to sin square theta plus square of the denominator divided by the square of the denominator. That comes because you have done 1 plus. Okay. If you expand the bracketed term on the right side numerator, you will get sin square plus cos square from this plus 2 cos into rho plus rho square. That is what you will get. The left hand side becomes sec square theta. If you take square root on both the sides, you will get sec theta is equal to square root of 1 sin square plus cos square becomes 1 plus 2 rho cos theta plus rho square. divided by square root of the denominator, which is just cos theta plus rho. And if you invert this equation, you will get cos theta is equal to cos theta center of mass plus rho upon square root of 1 plus 2 rho cos theta plus rho square. Okay. This is again very, very routine algebra. You don't even have some quadratic equation or something. It's just straightforward squaring and adding. It's like 8th standard level algebra, more or less. Okay. Apart from the fact that you need to know trigonometric ratios. You have to know that. Okay. I will just stop at this stage for a bit if anyone wants to catch up with either the writing or understanding the equation. And if there are any questions at this stage, please ask. All right. If there are no questions, I am assuming that everything is clear. Everything is only algebra at this stage. There is no real physics as such. Physics will come now. Okay. So finally, we have a relation between the center of mass angle and the laboratory angle. Okay. What were these things, center of mass angle and laboratory angle? The center of mass angle is the observed scattering angle, what you do in an experiment. So the center of, the laboratory scattering angle is the observed scattering angle. So basically in this expression, if you want a very easy way of remembering this, left hand side is the experimentalist's scattering angle. The left hand side, an experimentalist will give it to you. He will say that this is what I saw in the lab. Right hand side is something which the theorist will give. Theorist will say that I have used central force problem and this is what I got. So this equation basically represents experiment equal to theory, kind of. Okay. It's a comparison between experimented, not really a comparison, an equivalence, establishing an equivalence between what the experimentalist will see, which is what is there on the left, and what the theorist will calculate, which is there on the right. And we have just found a relationship between these two. Basically, we have bridged this age-old gap between the experimentalist and the theorist. It's an important thing. Okay. Of course, right at this stage, having this expression in hand doesn't give you any kind of feeling of power that I have done something important. So let us try to use this to actually establish some concrete physics result. Okay. Watch how it goes. Let us try to understand once again with the same picture the relationship between theta lab and theta center of mass. Basically, theta lab, the lab frame scattering angle, is the angle between initial direction of projectile and final direction of projectile. Okay? As it is depicted over here. Basically, what happens? Projectile comes, gets scattered by the target, it goes and enters the detector. At this point, everyone agrees. Projectile will come, interact with target, get scattered, goes and enters into detector. Yes? Physically, there is no problem understanding this, right? That's a very clear thing, physical picture. No one can debate this. I mean, I am observing things in the detector. The only reason they have come is because the particle got scattered. So there is no debate about it that what I was observing in the detector is a scattered particle. Now, beyond this fact, what is the experimental fact? I obtained the particle in the detector. That is the experimental fact. After that, whether you are trying to trace back the path of that particular particle from the target's original position or from the target's current position, all these things are very secondary. Do you agree with this? I mean, it cannot possibly have an effect on whether the particle will enter the detector. The particle enters the detector is an established experimental fact. बाद में, whether you are considering it, looking at it from the viewpoint of theta laboratory, theta center of mass, that is all in your mind. What is there concretely in, visibly in the experiment is that particle entered into the detector. Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, very important thing. Okay. Detector is detecting n number of particles. Okay. Now, whether I say that this came about because, see, we have this picture of scattering in our mind. We say that projectile goes in this direction, then this is the scattering angle. Basically, every particle which passes through this section of area dA, this ring of area dA, will also pass through this patch of solid angle d omega. This is something which we have imprinted in our mind as what we understand from the process of scattering. Correct? Right? This is our understanding of the phenomena. Okay. Now, what is the difference between our two pictures? Center of mass picture and laboratory picture. In the laboratory picture, I am saying that the sphere, this sphere which we have constructed, that is centered around the original position of the target. That is what I mean by laboratory frame scattering angle. Okay. What do I mean by center of mass frame scattering angle? Same thing, only thing that sphere, this sphere is constructed around this point, the center of mass. Okay, that is why the angles are different. Is this okay? Is this fine? So only my construction of this imaginary sphere, for the laboratory angle, the construction of the sphere is at this point, the target's original position. Okay. For the theta center of mass, my construction of this sphere is around the center of mass position. Is this okay? That is only difference between the two pictures. Just where I have constructed this sphere is differing between the two pictures. Okay. Is okay? Nothing? All right. I'm assuming this is okay. Yeah, bolo.
स्पियर ची पोझिशन काय चेंज होणार नाही ना, असं तुम्हाला बोलायचं?
स्पियर ची पोझिशन चेंज होते, कारण स्पियर for theta laboratory, my sphere is constructed around the target. For theta center of mass, my sphere is constructed around the center of mass. Okay. That see, our other definition of scattering angle was the angle at which the outgoing path intersects with the sphere, if you remember. Correct? Here also we have shown the same thing. Outgoing path, where does it intersect the sphere? Correct?
Okay, sir.
So, the difference in the two considerations is where you are constructing this imaginary sphere. But that is exactly my point. The sphere is an imaginary thing. Basically, what you are saying is that particle अगर ये patch में से गुजरा तो sphere को किधर ना किधर intersect करके जाएगा. About that we are clear, because finally the particle did enter the detector. Now, from where it came is secondary issue. Okay. Therefore, taking our original definition, the intensity of the beam multiplied by the patch of area dA. If I am looking at things from the center of mass frame, then I can equate this to 2 pi sigma into sine theta d theta, where theta is the center of mass angle. If I am looking at it from laboratory viewpoint, I can correlate it as some other function sigma prime times sine theta lab d theta lab. This is just because I have drawn the sphere at two different points. Okay. So this sphere will have its own kind of angular distribution. Taking the detector at different points, I'll get a different angular distribution on this sphere. I'll get a different angular distribution on this sphere. Okay. Is that okay? That is why I have written the cross section, the differential cross section. If you remember, differential cross section is a measure of the angular distribution. We are writing two different functions for these two different spheres. But you cannot refute the fact that total number of particles will be the same, because ultimately detector to detector hai, particle to particle hai. If there are n number of particles detected in the detector, our theoretical consideration of which is original position or current position of target, that cannot change this number n. It's an absolute number which you measure. Okay. Just because you change your frame of reference, physics cannot change. Okay. And therefore, you are drawn to this conclusion that if I have a different way of measuring the angle, all that will change is the angular distribution part. But the total number of particles scattered has to be the same, because it is the same experiment seen from two different ways. I can't get two different results for it. Okay? Same experiment seen from two different ways cannot lead to two different results. It is the same result. Okay? Number of particles measured has to be same. I cannot say that हाँ मैं इधर से देखूंगा तो मेरे को 15 पार्टिकल मिलता है, मैं उधर से देखूंगा तो वही डिटेक्टर में मुझे 20 पार्टिकल मिलता है. Not possible. ठीक है? Means when you are doing a theoretical construction in physics, it is very important to remember that it should be consistent with the experimental fact. Without that, that construction has no real physical significance. Okay? So experimental fact that I observed n particles. Now in what direction they were scattered depends on my viewpoint. Okay? Depend on which frame of reference I am look, or which angle, mane, whether I am talking about laboratory frame angle or center of mass frame. But it doesn't matter. The number of particles is going to be the same. Okay? Therefore, we are drawn to this conclusion that once the particles have passed through this ring of area dA, whether I measure it in terms of center of mass frame angle or in terms of laboratory frame angle, the number of scattered particles passing through this patch has to be the same, because they will be detected by the detector at a particular point. Is this okay for everyone? If this is okay, then we can equate these two equations. We can also make another statement that the total cross section also will be the same in both the cases, which is also an extension of the same idea. Okay? Since the total cross section is the same on both the sides, okay, the integrand will be the same, because the integral in both the cases is from 0 to pi. And therefore, you are drawn to this conclusion that the entire integrand, including the differential part, this whole thing is the same. And hence, if we equate this and transfer everything to the other side, basically the laboratory frame cross section will be equal to this: sin theta d theta, center of mass, divided by sin theta d theta lab, multiplied by the center of mass frame cross section. Why we have rearranged like this? Because this quantity is something which we already calculated in our previous approach using the orbit equation. This is what we calculated: the cross section in terms of the center of mass angle. Okay? What we don't know is cross section in terms of the laboratory angle, and that is what we wanted to find. So once again, we have got this as a kind of relation between a experimentally observed cross section and the theoretically calculated cross section. Okay? If you look at this factor, sin theta d theta is nothing but differential of cos theta with a minus sign. So if you take the same expression on numerator and denominator, the minus sign will cancel and you are left with this expression: derivative of cos theta center of mass with respect to cos theta laboratory is the multiplying factor, multiplied by the center of mass angle cross section is equal to the laboratory angle cross section. Okay? Let us just quickly go through this. How did we arrive here? We are drawn here by the physical fact that scattering is scattering, and scattered particles, the number of scattered particles has to be the same irrespective of what way of looking at the system you are following. Okay? And therefore we are led to this conclusion that the laboratory frame cross section is related to the center of mass angle cross section, which we have calculated in our original consideration. They are related via this particular relation. But if you remember, we already have an expression for cos theta center of mass in terms of cos theta lab. Okay? And in the next step, we will use that to obtain the final expression. For this, I am going to represent cos theta by the symbol X, because otherwise the expression looks very messy. You can have a look. Basically, your original expression was cos theta lab equal to cos theta center of mass plus rho divided by 1 plus 2 rho cos theta center of mass plus rho square. Instead of cos theta, I have used the symbol X, because if I differentiate this now, basically what I want to do is derivative of cos theta lab with respect to cos theta center of mass. That's why I've written X. Look at how horrible this expression looks right now. Okay. You can do it by UV rule, as you people like to call it, U by V rule. Sorry. I am, as I have told you before also, I am very poor with U by V rule. So I generally tend to do these things by UV rule. I take the numerator as U and 1 upon denominator as V and do it. And when you do that, this is what you get. You may end up with a different way approach of getting the same result. So we can compare notes after getting the final result. By cross multiplying this, the final result you obtain is the following. 1 plus rho cos theta center of mass divided by 1 plus 2 rho cos theta center of mass plus rho square to the power 3 by 2. This is the expression which you obtain. Okay. Sorry. Let me just pause here just for you to catch up if you are taking down notes. Okay. This is done in Goldstein, maybe not in the same amount of detail. Goldstein likes to skip steps, which makes sense when you're writing a textbook, no doubt. Okay. But basically you get a relation for derivative of cos theta lab with respect to cos theta center of mass. You get it in terms of cos theta center of mass. Okay. And if you will take this expression, and this is the final expression after, instead of X, if you actually write cos theta, this is how it looks. This is now cos theta center of mass derivative with respect to cos theta lab, because that is the quantity which you want to substitute. And when you substitute that in this expression, you get finally the expression for the laboratory angle cross section in terms of the center of mass angle cross section. Okay. Which happens to be this particular horrible looking thing. All right. Now, just to clarify what we have achieved here, basically, if you look at the left hand side, it is the cross section as measured by an experimentalist. Okay. And the right hand side is the cross section as calculated by a theorist, and some other terms which are also calculated by the theorist. So this basically gives you an idea of how to compare a observed cross section with a calculated one. There is this kind of procedure to be followed. Okay. So I can happily do my calculations in the center of mass formalism, that is in the orbit equation type formalism. I can happily do my experiment without bothering about whether the target is recoiling or not. I just observe where all my projectile particles are being scattered. And then I can use this formula to compare the two different results which have been obtained. Okay. I hope this is fine. This is clear. Any questions at this stage? All right. Let us move further. Let us try to wind up this by interpreting this quantity which is called rho. Okay. Rho is something which we can call as maybe recoil parameter, as we mentioned earlier, because it was a ratio of center of mass momentum divided by the target recoil momentum. But let us try to see how else we can look at it. Basically, as we said, it is the ratio of the center of mass momentum divided by the recoil momentum of the target. Center of mass velocity can itself be written in terms of the initial projectile and target velocities. Initial velocity of the target is basically 0, as you know, because the target is initially not moving. Okay? And therefore, you can actually write this as initial projectile velocity divided by the relative recoil velocity of the target. Okay? Not that this helps much, this is just a simplification of this. Okay? Another thing to look out for is the following, that if you have an inelastic collision taking place, that is if there is a transfer of momentum taking place before and after the collision, then basically you have another relation which you have to look for. The final kinetic energy of the relative particle is equal to the initial kinetic energy, initial relative kinetic energy plus some factor Q. Okay. This Q is called the it is called Q value. It has no other name. It is basically the energy lost in the scattering process. So basically what you have is final kinetic energy is equal to initial kinetic energy plus energy lost in the collision. By definition, energy lost is a negative quantity. Okay? And hence Q is actually negative. That is why initial kinetic energy is actually greater than final kinetic energy. So initial kinetic energy plus lost energy, which means some negative energy, is equal to final kinetic energy. Okay? The reason you put plus Q is because Q value was a traditionally used quantity which was defined in this manner, and so we are not changing that terminology. You must have seen the Q value comes up usually in nuclear reactions. Reactions between nuclei, where you have Q value, which is the threshold energy required to carry out that particular nuclear reaction. Okay? So Q is the energy lost in the collision as far as we are concerned. Okay? And if you rearrange this expression, you get relative V relative upon U relative. That is final relative velocity upon initial relative velocity is equal to square root of 1 plus 2 cube by mu U relative square. This comes about by just rearranging this expression. Nothing special about it. You first take, you can basically divide throughout by half mu U relative square. You'll get 1 here, and you will get V square by U square here, and you will get 2q by mu U square here, and then take square root on both the sides. You end up with this expression. Okay, it's nothing special, but this is a this is basically V relative divided by U relative, which is this quantity, and we can use this over here to substitute for the ratio of initial projectile velocity upon relative velocity. We had already established that initial projectile velocity is same as initial relative velocity, so we can actually substitute that there. So use the fact that relative initial velocity is same as initial projectile velocity, and you substitute explicitly for the reduced mass. You end up with rho is equal to mass of projectile upon mass of target into square root of this quantity, 1 plus capital M by MTQ by E. One can try to interpret this rho from here in a different way. First of all, it has the means as the projectile energy increases, rho decreases. As the Q value goes to 0, rho reduces to mass of projectile upon mass of target, and things like that. Okay. Q value going to 0 means basically elastic collision. So for elastic collision, you have a different value of rho and so on. Okay. Let us try to use different types of rho in different types of systems and see what we get. This is the final result for rho as far as we are concerned. So now we have a relationship between the laboratory frame cross section, differential cross section, and the center of mass angle differential cross section. And we have an expression for rho in which we can take into account inelastic collisions, elastic collisions, everything within one framework. Okay. So let us try to do a few kind of examples, and then we will conclude. Okay. The first example we are looking at is elastic scattering. When you have elastic scattering, basically, as we discussed, there is no Q value because there is no energy lost in the collision. So Q is 0. If Q is 0, rho expression simplifies to just MP by NT, mass of projectile divided by mass of target. Now, in case you have a very heavy target, example, electron scattering about a heavy nucleus. Okay, electron mass is much lower than the nuclear mass, and hence target is much heavier than the projectile. And in this case, you will basically get rho is virtually 0, and hence the relationship between the laboratory angle and the center of mass angle is basically that tan theta lab is equal to sin theta center of mass upon cos theta center of mass, which is basically tan theta is equal to tan theta, which means theta laboratory is equal to theta center of mass, and hence the cross sections are also equal. In other words, we are basically recovering our original expression which we had last time. If I have an infinitely heavy target, then basically my results calculated in the center of mass frame are the same as the results calculated in the target rest frame, because both the frames are the same. Okay. The center of mass frame and the target rest frame, which is the lab frame, are the same because the target is so heavy that after the collision it doesn't move at all. That is what this particular case is telling you, which is a result which you got, which is something which you would have anticipated. But it is good that even despite such complications, that rho has some complicated expression, and the relation between sigma lab and sigma center of mass is also very complicated. Despite all that, everything simplifies to give you back this. This is just a confidence building exercise that yes, our formalism is working the way it should work. Okay. The other extreme for an elastic collision is when you have identical masses. For example, electron-electron collision. An electron repelling from another electron will have it's an elastic collision and it is an equal mass collision. If the masses are equal, then rho, which is mass of projectile upon mass of target, will be 1. If rho is 1, you get a very interesting result. Basically, you find that the lab frame angle is equal to sin theta center of mass upon cos theta center of mass plus 1. You can basically write sin theta as 2 sin theta by 2 cos theta by 2. You can write cos theta as 2 cos square theta minus 1. Minus 1 plus 1 cancels. You will get 1 cos theta and one of these cos thetas cancels. 2 and 2 cancel. You will get sin theta by 2 upon cos theta by 2, which is tan theta by 2. And therefore, you find that the laboratory scattering angle is equal to the center of mass scattering angle divided by 2. Very interesting. See, center of mass scattering angle goes from 0 to 180 degrees. Okay. Therefore, the laboratory angle will maximum go only from 0 to 90 degrees because it is 0 by 2 to pi by 2. Okay. So you can only get forward scattering in the laboratory if you have a stationary electron and a moving electron coming and colliding with it. Okay. There can only be forward scattering. Both the particles will move in the forward direction. You cannot get back scattering if both the masses are equal. It's an interesting result. Okay. One can go forward and try to calculate the cross sections as well. Rho is equal to 1 if you substitute. Then the cross section formula turns out to be like this. We have substituted rho equal to 1 and therefore you get this result. 1 plus rho square becomes 2 and 2 rho becomes also 2. And the denominator becomes rho plus cos theta becomes 1 plus cos theta. You can see that this is, you can take the 2 to the power 3 by 2 common. So it will be 1 plus cos theta to the power 3 by 2 upon 1 plus cos theta. Which gives you 1 plus cos theta to the power half, and you can in turn write this as cos square theta by 2 minus 2 cos square theta by 2 minus 1. If you cancel the 2 ones, you will get 2 to the power 3 by 2 into 2 to the power half gives you 4, and cos square theta by 2 to the power half gives you cos theta by 2. So basically you get the laboratory cross section is equal to 4 cos theta by 2 times the center of mass angle cross section. Okay. In what way is this thing, how to interpret this? Well, let us take an example. Okay. 2 equal masses is what we are talking about, right? So basically this tells you that Uh, Let us take the example of hard sphere scattering. We have not done this problem yet, but we saw the hard sphere scattering pattern, if you remember last time. Hard sphere scattering has a uniform angular distribution. That is, in the center of mass frame, all directions are equally likely for scattering. Okay? The angular distribution is uniform. However, that is assuming that the target is stationary. The case we are considering is that the target and the projectile have the same mass. If they have the same mass, then the angular distribution is no longer uniform. You have a much greater likelihood of forward scattering. That is because of this cos theta by 2 term here. So basically, even though sigma center of mass is angle independent, sigma laboratory is dependent on the angle. Okay? It is basically proportional to cos theta lab, because theta center of mass by 2 is theta lab according to what we have got earlier. Okay? So basically, even if the center of mass angular distribution is uniform, that is, there is no angle dependence of scattering in the center of mass angle, in terms of the center of mass angle or in the center of mass viewpoint. From the laboratory viewpoint, there could be a angular distribution. What is an example of this? Take a simple carom board as an example. Suppose I have a carom coin which is made of some extremely heavy material like lead. Okay? If I hit it with a striker, that coin will not move because it is too heavy. The striker will only recoil. This is the example where the target is infinitely heavier than the projectile. In this case, depending on where I hit the striker, I will get scattering at different angles, and this is uniform. That is what we saw last time. So for infinite mass, the case we are looking at is hard sphere scattering. If the mass of target is much greater than mass of projectile, then different projectile particles which come will get deflected at different angles. Okay? But the angular distribution will be uniform, which means that if you look at sigma as a function of theta, you will find that in all directions the scattering probability is equal. Okay? On the other hand, if the mass of target is equal to the mass of the projectile, then what you observe in the laboratory frame is the following, that when this particle comes and hits, it goes at a certain direction, this also moves in a certain direction. It comes and hits, it moves in a certain direction, but this also moves in a certain direction. And it turns out that the cross section in this case is actually like this. It is proportional to 4 times cos theta center of mass by 2, which is basically cos theta lab. So it is non-zero only from 0 to 90, and beyond 90 it is 0. Okay? So this basically means that there is a great probability of being scattered in the forward direction. There is less probability of being scattered to the sides, and very less probability of being scattered at 90 degree, and absolutely no probability of being scattered in the backward direction, because all this area it is 0. This is 90 degrees. This is 180 degrees. So from 90 to 180 the cross section is 0. Whereas here everywhere 0, 90, 180, everywhere the cross section is uniform. This is the difference between the center of mass frame and the laboratory frame for the same type of potential. Okay? So angular distributions could be different. Total cross sections won't be different. Total cross sections will be the same, but the angular distributions could be quite different. In this case, there is no angular dependence, whereas here there is a significant angular dependence. Here scattering at all angles is allowed. Here it is allowed only in the forward sector, not in the backward sector. Okay? Even in the forward sector, the cross section is not uniform. There is a detailed discussion of this particular problem, I think, in Taylor's book. You can have a look. Okay? It will give you a better perspective on things. All right. Basically, this is where I would like to kind of stop, unless there are some questions, and you can ask. Otherwise, this is where I would like to stop. Thank you.